Whenever Tim Lambestis went to jail a couple of years ago, the future of As I Lay Dying was obviously very uncertain. But the band decided to move forward, considering, well, what else were they going to do? They hooked up with O Sleeper vocalist Shane Blay, and they formed Wovenwar, whose 2014 self-titled album was met with some moderate acclaim. But here we are in 2016, Tim Lambestis is talking about how he's getting breasts, and Wovenwar is releasing Honor is Dead, their second album, which there could be some allusion drawn between that title and, well, maybe Lambestis himself. Now, there's a lot of things about this album that do make it different, and even though Wovenwar's first disc was sort of a combined effort of O Sleeper's sound as well as I Lay Dying's, this sort of meeting of the minds philosophy, that's not as true with this one. Instead, this is an album that I think really attempts to forge an identity for Wovenwar by itself, and I'm just not sure that they really were able to accomplish that as well as they maybe would have hoped. Now, this album here is only 38 minutes long and 11 tracks. The very first one was 15 tracks and 54 minutes, so this is noticeably shorter. Traditionally, in avenues such as this, that would mean that Honor is Dead would be a bit of a easier listen, one that doesn't last as long, so thus it's easy to sort of digest. What's actually the case, though, is that a lot of these tracks feel like they were just average. Either that, or a lot of this feels like just any other contemporary within this subgenre. Whether you want to call them hard rock, whether you want to call them melodic metal, whether you want to call them this or that. Whatever tag that you deem Wovenwar really as, unless you call them black metal and then you're just flat out wrong, this is definitely one that feels like they fit into the in-crowd, but you really can't tell any members of the in-crowd apart within the construct of this music. And it's something that you've heard 1,001 times before. On a lot of these tracks, you get gruff vocals, you have some very aggressive, plucking and pecking. You have, just sort of that machismo is sort of just going everywhere on some of these tracks, and then you get clean singing to offset it, and those cleans are very much polished out, and it has a lot of power and register behind it and everything, but then we go right back into that aggression. It's a formula that is tried and true. It's certainly something that over the past decade has become very much sort of ingrained in the minds of music fans and metal fans collectively. So based off of this, they're already doing something that feels like it's being done by 1,001 other bands. You could easily get to the same similar structure on an In Flames record. The only difference might be is that the growling portions, or the more aggressive portions, may seem a little bit deeper. Either that, or may seem like they have a little bit more gumption behind them. Now, there are a couple tracks off of Honor is Dead that are a little slower, such as Compass. Either that or Silhouette. And these tracks do provide a little bit of a sort of offsetting. It does provide a little bit of difference, and it does show a little bit of the heartier side of the band, if you really want to use that word, because it's flat out wrong. The heart of the band, not the heartier side. We're not talking about soup here, but this is kind of something that's also part of a lot of the contemporaries. A lot of part of the formula is to have a lot of aggression, but then offset it with something that has a little bit more personal meaning. This is almost like building and designing an album 101, and it's the most basic of levels, as opposed to really weaving something that has a little bit of complexity to it. Either that, or sort of keeps you guessing a little bit. This one feels really typical and run-of-the-mill, and that's kind of the problem that Wovenwar has with Honor is Dead. This is one that feels like it has a lot of that same structure that you've really witnessed a number of times before. So, what does Wovenwar offer to the table with this album that is pretty good? Well, if there's one thing, it's that the grooves certainly have a lot of motion to them. It's a very kinetic album in many ways, except for the couple of tracks that slow things down. This is one that's constantly moving. Overall, the vocals are not terrible. In fact, everything's pretty well, easy to, either listen to or attain or, understand. It's an understandable album, I guess is what I'm saying. And by and large, within this style of music, within this construct of heavy metal, if you really want to go that deep into the rabbit hole, this is something that's approachable to just about anybody. And those that really enjoy this side of the musical coin are going to find Honor is Dead to be an acceptable release. But I think even they will sort of beg for more a little bit from this group. It's an album that feels like it's over a little bit too soon, but it's also an album that is easily forgotten in your mind after it's done. It's a disc that just doesn't have that sort of oomph or it factor. Even whenever you get into the first single, Censorship, or whenever you get towards the middle portions of this album with songs such as World on Fire that has a lot of more aggressiveness to it, or 130 that has more speed and a lot more heaviness to it, these are still songs that you just remember because, well, that was a little heavier than the other one. You don't really remember it because it felt like a really strong experience. This is an album that just feels a bit dead to the water. It's there, it exists, and that's about all. And that's kind of sad considering the debut by these guys was pretty darn good. It had a lot of promise, and it still had that same amount of kinesis that Honor Is Dead does, but that kinesis was really well done and really well handled. It was distributed in a way where it never felt like the album was ever getting, too far behind of where its own kinesis is. I don't know, this is a disc that just feels like it felt a lot flatter than was really expected. I had kind of some high hopes for this one. 71 out of 100 on this one, it just didn't connect with me in any way. And let that be just something else. If this connected to you, then hey, I'm happy that it did. I'm sure that there's going to be a lot of folks where this album was just fine. In fact, there'll probably be some folks that really, really like it. And that's fine. I think that that's great. But just do me a favor, in the comments below, let me know how it spoke to you, why it spoke to you, and what it said too. Because, well, no conversation is just... I'm Coverkillernation, and I'll talk to you guys next time. Let me know what you thought about Honor Is Dead by Wovenwar. Take care.